Come on up. They're coming on up. You're in. Come on up.
All right. Hello. There was a bit of a backup as the last group was coming off. Sorry, but we made it through. We had Kelvin to block for us. It was great.
Thank you.
He's pretty good at that. Well, welcome, everyone. We're excited to be having this conversation. I could not hear Damien at all over there, so I'm not sure if he did intros. Super excited to have Meg Mitchell, who's the creative director for advertising and social for United, amazing global creative director, and Kelvin Beachum, offensive tackle for the Arizona Cardinals going into the season number 12, I believe.
Yes, that's correct.
Woo! And tech investor, advisor, and beyond. I can read behind you as well. This is super helpful. And we're going to dig in. We're going to talk a little bit about how sport brings people together and how we've been fortunate enough at 72 and Sunny to work with both of these amazing humans and their brands in doing that. So let's start first with what sport means and how team works and leadership. Leadership's critical. Meg, United is a brand that isn't just a leader in terms of getting people from point A to point B. It's a leader in innovation and beyond. You're a leader inside United. What do you think it takes to be a strong leader, and what is important both as a brand and as a human who's a part of team?
Yeah. I'll start with the human side because I think that is the most important piece of when it comes to leadership. So I was fortunate enough to start my career at the Oprah Winfrey Show, where I spent almost a decade producing promos. And so it was a masterclass in leadership if you think about one of the strongest, most influential leaders the planet has ever seen. And among many of the lessons that I received there, when you know better, do better, and don't go to the second location, which is a whole nother story we could talk about. But it was really about intention. She led with intention, and she asked every producer before a show or as a show was coming together, what is the intention of this show? And if you didn't have a good enough answer, your intention wasn't matching the prep, then the show would stop and you would restart and recalibrate. So I think this idea of intention for me, whether it is a tweet that we're writing or it is a massive brand campaign, is super important. And I think the idea for United as well, intention is sort of a concept that we have brought through, especially through the pandemic. So if you think about air travel in 2020, it was grounded. And our CEO at the time said, all we have to do is the next right thing. We have to do the right thing. And so it was that intention from which a lot of innovation was born during the pandemic that sort of drove what we can do to serve our customers and our employees. So intention for me.
Oh, I love that. Well, that's going to, I feel like, really segue into Kelvin. Obviously, you've been on a lot of teams as an athlete throughout your life. What makes a team special, and what's the difference between that team that you know can go further than anyone else versus the teams that don't?
I think first and foremost, even within sports, is the fact that people care about one another. And within sports settings, it's all about the chemistry. And if your chemistry is not right, your team won't be right. If I don't like, my running back, or as an offensive lineman, my offensive lineman doesn't like me as a running back, that's not a good recipe for success. Mm-hmm. So it's first and foremost, do you like each other? Do you consider each other family? Are you willing to do the hard things and sacrifice for one another? And then secondly, what does that chemistry really look like? Can you work together? Can you work cohesively? And are you willing to put the ego aside, put your goals aside and really put the team first?
That works splendidly. Speaking of teams and how you use them to make the biggest impact, right? Kelvin, you are a huge advocate and play a huge role in the community and spend a lot of your time with various organizations driving impact, driving change. When you talk about it's about collaboration and how you work together, as an athlete, you're approached a lot to partner with different organizations. How do you evaluate the ones that you think are right and make sure that it actually has an impact?
Well, I think first and foremost, is the brand or is the entity, are they willing to do this long term? It's one thing to do, you come to an event one time, or you show up for the activation one time, or you do a paid event one time. But how do we think about something that's somewhat long tail? How can we do, multiple tentpole events in 1 year? And not only tentpole events, how do we do things that are collaborative across multiple channels and multiple distribution channels where we can serve each other in a holistic way. So when I think about any type of partnership or any type of collaboration, I think about those particular aspects as I'm thinking about the decision-making process that goes into it.
That aligns a lot with how you evaluate partnerships at United, Meg. When we think about the Golden State Warriors or the Chicago Bulls and your partnerships, tell us more about how you all as a brand look at those partnerships and make sure that they are not just performative and they're delivering the results that both you as United and those organizations want.
Yeah, I think for us, we've taken a different approach. I think years past, it was about, logos in a stadium and, official airline of X partner. And that isn't good enough for us anymore. And I think that when we do partner with an organization, whatever that organization might be, is that we have a conversation to figure out what is the impact that we need to have in the community for which that team is based, which is typically a community in which our employees live and work. So, for example, the Golden State Warriors is one that we collaborated on, something called the Franchise Fund, that helps support minority-owned businesses in the Bay Area with with grants and training. And so for us, that is a different way of approaching what a sports sponsorship might be or any kind of partnership, but singularly important.
I love that. And then recently announced is your partnership with Wrexham AFC.
Yes.
Can you tell us about how that came about?
Yes, please tell us.
Yeah,
please
okay. We've been talking to the team at Maximum Effort for quite some time now, and so it was really just born out of those conversations together. It's exciting because the team is coming on a U.S. tour this summer, and so we're actually going to be flying them all over the country as they do their presentation. All over the country.
Oh, wow. Do I get a chance to get on the plane?
I think Kelvin wants to play soccer.
Yeah, I think they start in Charlotte. They're in Philly, San Diego, LA. So it's quite a tour. Yeah, so that'll be exciting.
It's really exciting. We're going to pivot a little bit here now. NRG, who's a sister agency of 72 & Sunny, shared data that 1 in 3 consumers says they pick a brand based on that experience or partnership or a collaboration they've had with someone else. And so obviously super powerful. Kelvin, I'd love to hear from you as an athlete, what other brands you look at and partnerships that are inspiring to you and that you think are powerful.
I even look at just the relationship that I'm starting to form with United, and the more time that I spend with United, I realize how innovative they are just with how they have this customer experience as you're getting on a plane. You get on a plane, you hear about your bag, and everybody's had lost bags. I've heard about the lost bags that have happened coming to Cairns. But I don't think United has had that issue. However,
Thank you.
No United flights.
But you take
Never lost a bag.
But you take the fact that they're engaging with you on your phone through SMS and the gifts that they send via SMS. Or you go through the app and you realize, hey, you can tag your bag or you can check your bag before you even get to the airport. And you're making the process more seamless. As an athlete, we can be somewhat spoiled at times and we want everything kind of handed to us and want it to be frictionless. As a consumer, United has made their process and engaging with them seamless and frictionless. And I think when you think about brands you want to be aligned with, people you want to spend time with, how seamless and how frictionless is that particular collaboration? And they've done a phenomenal job in that regard.
We didn't even rehearse this.
No, we did not.
but
didn't plug it either.
Yeah.
She didn't ask me to plug either. That was just I've flown United a couple of times over the last couple of months. It's been a great experience.
Yeah, which we appreciate. I think goes back to some of that intention setting of doing the right thing during the pandemic. A lot of those improvements were made at that time, right? Of what is it? How do we make a better customer experience, and how do we improve our app, and how do we make sure that bags get from point A to point B? And it really was just about doing the right thing for our customers.
And to take it a step further, it's the details that you all input into the process.
Do tell.
Okay, details, right? So I took United to come over here. You have those, we have different plugs in America, and they have the block plugs that you got to have here in Cairns. I forgot mine, but on the plane over here to Cairns, they had this little United box that had the
adapter.
The adapters. Yep. And I was like, hot dog. Look at this, the fine minor details that United has for their customers. And again, that goes back to, the thoughtfulness and the intentionality that you talked about earlier that is needed when you're talking about engaging with the brand.
I love that. Speaking of intention, United has a big partnership with the PGA and HBCUs. So we're going to watch a piece of work, and then we're going to talk about it. So you can play the video.
Golf is mine. It's in the way I swing, the way I move that leaves you no choice but to ask.
Who is that?
When I step on the turf,
It's not with caution, but with pride and with power. Golf is ours.
Golf is black.
golf is mine. Golf is for all of us.
Love it. So, Meg, tell us about this partnership, how it's evolved, and how it manifested. And obviously, this is messaging that we were thrilled to work on with you together. But tell us about how it got to this point.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you to 72 for helping us put this beautiful work into the world. But our partnership, when you speak about sort of longevity of partnerships too, we've had a partnership with HBCUs for a long time, and it's ongoing. So part of what we did last year was work with them to figure out what is the biggest barrier for HBCU golf teams, number one. And then number two, how can we help solve that? And what they let us know is that really it's air travel was one of the biggest barriers that they had for all of the golf teams. And so what we did in partnership with the PGA was invest over $500,000 to fund air travel for 51 HBCUs across the country. So that partnership, when you speak longevity, will continue. And, speaking of intentionality with this work, too, I think, 72 was phenomenal in this, that we were very intentional on who we partnered with to actually make the work. And that was Beacon, our Black Business Resource Group at United Airlines, and then everybody behind the scenes who made this work, from the director to the creative team at 72 to the editor to the colorist, was Black.
I love just the intention. It just keeps coming back and back. So how does sport unite? How does sport drive impact? It's through really thoughtful intention. And Kelvin, I think you're one of the most intentional and thoughtful humans and athletes that I've had the pleasure of meeting, just in the way you speak about how you pick your partnerships, what you do, how you think about it. So I want to talk a little bit more about another partnership of yours that you have with United Airlines Aviate, and how that aligns with your own personal interests, and why Aviate?
For me, when I think about science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, which is one of my core verticals philanthropically, when you think about the airline and aviation industry, it hits each of those. And United Aviate, literally right around the corner from State Farm Stadium there in Glendale, they're trying to increase the population of African-American pilots into the aviation industry. And not only African-American pilots, but at large pilots in general.
Women too.
Women as well, especially black women. I think there was a stat that only 1% of pilots are African-American women. So making sure that there are more women, black women, that are involved in this process. And, as somebody who loves the aviation industry, who wants to be not a commercial pilot, but like a little small pilot one day, I felt that there was some natural synergies. So went over there for a tour, had a great time. The Super Bowl came to Arizona this past year, brought a lot of attention to United Aviate, and it's been, again, an organic partnership. They took me up in the air, allowed me to do a little steering, got a discovery flight in. So it's been, again, an organic relationship that's happened over the years, but you realize how important the mission is. We're aligned on mission. We're aligned on purpose. I'm aligned because of what I do philanthropically and within education. And then you decrease the barrier to entry. You're being able to provide scholarships to underserved communities to make sure that they can partake in this. And then you're also decreasing the barrier to entry from an age standpoint. So you don't have to be 21 or 25 to be a pilot. You can start working on your pilot's license before you even get your driver's license. And for me, that was so impactful because it's giving young people the opportunity to start investing in their career at a very, very young age.
Yeah. United Aviate Academy is pretty incredible. We are the only airline to wholly own a flight school, and it was developed really, one, to solve the pilot shortage problem. Like you were saying, there are not enough pilots, but while we were going to solve that problem, let's also solve the massive representation problem that exists not just in our flight deck, but in flight decks around the world. So the stat of less than 1% of black women are pilots. I think it's less than 6% of women in total are pilots. Less than 6% are people of color. So there's a lot of work to do there. And the goal at United Aviate Academy is to have at least half of the graduates be women or people of color. And in our first graduating class last year, we were at 80%.
Powerful.
Woo.
Powerful.
Kelvin, you brought up tech innovation. Obviously, we're here at Sport Beach. Those are three categories that are known for being pretty cutthroat, pretty competitive. And we're talking about bringing people together. So how do you reconcile what could be very divisive in those areas? And I know tech is a passion of yours in terms of accessibility and driving that forward. And how do you make sure that it is a unifier and not a divider?
For one, I think you set the expectations so people know exactly what the expectation is and what we're trying to ultimately achieve. That's the first thing that you have to be able to lay out. That's the base floor. And then you lay out what are the standard operating procedures in essence is how do we want to accomplish those goals and those missions? And then it's like, how do you have the empathy and the human element that's a part of that? If you can kind of align those three, I think you're able to really not only have the innovation that we want to see, you want to see the diversity, the ESG, and all those different metrics that are met, but you have to have human connection and empathy at some point in time. And how do you layer that and that be a part of the fabric of the decision-making that's taking place?
That it's so true. It's so critical of like anything that we want to do as humanity in terms of moving forward to be aligned on that. And I think rings true at United and Good Leads the Way is really the platform and a North Star for a lot of decision making. Meg, how do you use that to make sure as you are really driving the whole industry forward as a company, also make sure United gets credit? That's a hard needle to thread. How do you manage that?
It is, and I think the credit piece, and I don't know, maybe this is just my opinion and not the opinion of the entire brand. The credit piece comes secondary. I mean, you get the credit if you do the work. And I think that is sort of like number one. If you are doing the right thing and you're doing the work, the credit will come. When I think about the work that we're doing first I'll start with Good Leads the Way, as you talked about, sort of a decision-making framework. So this was United's first brand advertising campaign in almost a decade that we launched in partnership with 72, so thank you very much. And it was really about good intentions. It's like this is a story of an airline with good intentions, and how do we set out to be a force for good in the world. And so that does drive everything that we do. And so if that is the foundation, the credit piece matters somewhat, but it's not driving the decision making of what it is that we're doing. So we will get the credit because we're doing the good, hard work. In one space, I think we're doing that, which we haven't touched on, is in sustainability. So, we're an airline that burns jet fuel is part of our core business. Like, that's never going to stop, right? And so when we said we were going to become carbon neutral by 2050, we said we were going to do it without the use of traditional carbon offsets, which was really important because that meant that we needed to address the source of the emissions for our planes, which was sustainable aviation fuel. So it's a really complicated topic. It's hard. It's hard to sort of break down, but when you talk about innovating, like we are a company that is investing more in sustainable aviation fuel production than any other airline in the world. Our goal is everybody else catches up with us, but we're doing it because we have a responsibility to decrease our emissions, and we have a responsibility to help fight climate change because we contribute to it. So we will get the credit because hopefully people sort of will follow along. That's not why we're doing it.
I love that. It's so powerful. And I keep coming back to where you started with intention. And Kelvin, it's a word you keep using as well, which is where we were going to kind of wrap things up of like, if you had one thing that you want people to take away about your brands, Kelvin as a player and as a brand in and of yourself, as United, Meg as a leader, what would you want people to think about, take away from today?
I came into the National Football League as a 7th-round pick. I had to be different. I had to be innovative. I had to utilize the resources that I had. And then I also had to be intentional. Not only intentional in how I structured, getting ready for Sundays and getting ready for, games, week after week, but also how I thought about the game after playing football and life after football and thinking about how to be intentional in the steps that I'm starting to take. So if I were to leave you with all, with anything, it would be just thinking about, one, utilizing the resources that you have, and then two, how do you find creative ways to be intentional?
Kelvin, I find that you walk that walk so much. I mean, we met last year here, and I think you're the only talent celebrity that was here that was in every single meeting, soaking it up, trying to meet, trying to learn. I think it is an inspiration and amazing to kids, to everyone around, to see someone who is so voraciously eager to learn and expand and use your platform for impact. So huge testament to you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh, it's me. All right. Close it out. I think it goes back to intention, our word of the day, I think, and then action. So how do you set the intention, and then how do you actually put action behind it? So for me, those are the two things sort of as a leader that I try and carry through with me.
It's, again, walk the walk as partners united. I think you can't find a better partner with optimism, trust, transparency, who just brings you in as much as you want to so you can really help solve the big problems. Otherwise, you would never get to the work that's out in the world and the impact that we're driving. And it's amazing the relationship that can develop from that.
Yeah, thank you. Well, and, in the words of Kelvin, you should download the United app, too, before you fly home or leave. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have gifts.